Good Tavach, Shavua Tov. A good week. We begin a new week. Means new life. Greater life than even the previous week. Because we go from strength to strength. We need to progress. Everybody in their lives is always looking for more. You're not looking for the same old, no change. We want growth. You want growth if you have a business, you want your business to grow. If you have relationships, you want the relationships to grow. We all have relationships. We want them to grow. We don't want merely to maintain them. And of course, the core of all of this is our relationship with God, that it needs to grow. It's very easy in everything in life to do out of habit. And to do it out of habit means, by definition, that it's not going to grow. Now, good character qualities are good that we have them habitually, but at the same time, we need to have the self-awareness and dig deeper inside of us and to extend ourselves and grow. That's, in fact, what makes us different than an animal, ultimately. Yes, it's the mind, the self-awareness, the brain that we have, the capacity of our brain and our minds, what we have. Where will the litmus test be proven? The uniqueness of the mind and the fact that we progress. The lion hasn't done anything as king of the jungle, hasn't done anything to improve its habitat, hasn't done anything to improve its life, right? Maybe if they're in a zoo and they have a lion tamer who's human, but otherwise, 5,000 years ago, lion, today, same thing. Same thing with a dog and a cat, unless they're owned by a human. But out in the wilderness, no progress. So we don't want to be like that. We want to progress. And with that, we've been blessed because we're here together to learn Tanya. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya to allow us to grow. And then what we're learning over here in Shar Yichud Ve'emunah, and understanding the true power of Creator within creation. How do we understand so we can grow our relationship with God? To know God as Creator. So we're in chapter 3, going into chapter 4, we have a difficulty. On the one hand, we're saying there's nothing else but God, but yet I feel me. If God were to make privy to us the fact that there's nothing else but Him, and we're only a part of Him, well, we wouldn't have freedom of choice. We wouldn't be able to serve Him. So God creates a sense that we're separate from Him. But in fact, what are we like? Metaphorically, we're like a ray of light within the sun. The ray of light, we know that there's light in the sun. How do we know? Well, because a ray of light extends from it, so it came from it. So therefore, it must be part of it. How do we call a ray of light in the sun? Do we call it, hey, Ray boy, sunny boy, Ray? No, you don't call him Ray or her. It. You don't call it a ray, right? You call it the sun globe. It's all part of the sun. It doesn't have a name of its own. It doesn't have an identity of its own, a separateness from its source. It's only when it comes outside of the sun it does. so too is God. There's nothing outside of him. We are like the ray of light within the sun. Now, here's where the metaphor falls short, is because in the metaphor, the sun globe is only in one place, 93.5 million miles away from us, and it's only there. And therefore, the rays of the sun extend beyond it. But it's only in that one position. God, though, isn't in one position, he's everywhere. So we are in our source within, like the ray of the sun was it's in its source. We are within our source within God. And therefore we are truly nothing, nullified, a part of him. Right? Something that we don't experience. We don't see it with our eyes. We're understanding it intellectually, but we're not experiencing it. Right. So the question is, how do we understand this, though, further? We're Chabad. We need to understand this concept. How's it possible that on the one hand, I'm in my source and I'm nullified to my source, like the ray of the sun within the sun? I am totally not separate. And yet, what I feel is my separateness. Now, of course, God is almighty and he can do whatever he wants and he can create that reality. But as I said, we're Chabad. We need to understand, right, how this is possible. What is the creative process in which God creates the world in such a way, and me inside of this world, where I am really not separate from him. I'm a part of him, a ray of light within the sun. And it is at the same time, I feel my total separateness from him. So it starts chapter 4, and it says, and this will be the beginning of the idea, King David said, for a sun and a shield is the name of God, Havaya, and the name of God, Elohim. In other words, the sun is a sun that is powerful, but it has a shield to protect us. Now, what that shield means to protect us, I'm not exactly certain. Is that the ozone layer? Maybe not. I don't, it's irrelevant, right? Well, what that means in a physical sense, because we're using it as a metaphor, and that's what counts for us, is to understand the metaphor. Of course, there is a physical reality to it, but what that means, again, not clear. How do we know? Well, because it says when Mashiach will come, God will remove the shield, the sheath that protects the sun. And interestingly enough, so it's going to be much hotter, and it will do two simultaneous things that are opposite from each other. It will bring healing to good people, and it will bring something punishing to the wicked. Psh, amazing. Which we see today even. You know, the sun brings healing to some people, and to other people it brings disease. Right? In any case, the point being, as the sages say, that when Mashiach will come, the Messianic era, the sheath, the shield will be removed, and it will then bring healing and something punishing at the same time. Okay, so let's understand that. That's the metaphor, right? The sun has a shield. What does that mean over here? We have two names of God. One is the sun, metaphorically like the sun, and one metaphorically is the shield to the sun, the shield, right? We have the name Havaya, that's similar to the sun, and Elohim is the name of God that is like the shield, the protective shield, okay? So we're going to do today only the name Havaya, and we'll continue with this, the name Elohim, in forthcoming class. So let's understand the name Havaya. 1 second. Let's actually get it here. Ooh. This is Elohim, the second name. That's the shield. That will be tomorrow. What's today? Where is Maka? Oh, I know. I put it in. Okay. Here it is. Shemavaya. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. When you put a Yud in front of the word, it makes something, means constants. Constant. Constant, Hoveh. Hoveh means present, being. Being in the present, being. Like when you're in the present, you're being, right? Being in the present. Constantly bringing into being in the presence. That's what this name is. The name of God that is constantly bringing a being into presence, into being, meaning creating it, not molding and shaping, but creating a being, me, you, this piece of paper, that God is constantly bringing it into being, something from nothing, from nothing. God is constantly doing that with the word of God, with the breath of his mouth, creating every moment ex nihilo something from nothing. In other words, we weren't just created from Genesis, in the book of Genesis, in the beginning, and ever since we are kind of just moving along on that energy. No, that's the mistake we explained in chapter 2. That's a mistake people make, that we create God in our image. God isn't molding and shaping us right now. He's actually bringing us into a being in the present tense constantly. Something from nothing. Ooh. That's like the sun. Constantly rays emerging from the sun. Constantly, constantly. That's the metaphor, right? This is what we call in in davening, we say in the Amida, in our private prayer with God, we refer to God Hagadol. Also Gibor, strong one, mighty one. God's mighty, but we call him Hagadol, the great one. Great refers to the attribute of kindness. It's God. What is kindness? Giving. And when God is giving, it's without limitation, without boundaries. God is giving. That's the attribute of God's kindness. That's why it's called great, because it's great because it's limitless, his giving, right? What would happen if God were to create only from this name, Havaya? Remember, there's another name, Elohim, which we're not going to get into. That's the shield, right? That will be in tomorrow. But now, if God were only to create from that name, what would happen? Create unlimited worlds and creatures, right? Right? It would be limitless, because God's kindness is limitless. So it wouldn't be sufficient to create the world with Shem Havaya. Again, the Tetragrammaton, name of God, right? Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. The Yud, again, before a word makes it constant, meaning God's constant engagement in this name, which is to bring Hoveh, which means present, like present tense, present, and also means being, right? Being in the present, meaning constantly bringing into the present being. Me, I'm a being. You're a being. This paper is a being, is a thing. That's a being. I mean, it doesn't mean human being. That's a human being, but there's a animal being. There's a tree being. There's a inanimate being, right? So God's constantly bringing that into existence from nothing. But being that this is God's, what we call Hagadol, greatness, this is the attribute of his kindness, that kindness would be limitless. So there needs to be something that will rein in the limitlessness of God in order to do what? Make me and you to have a sense of not limitation merely, which we sense, but separateness from our divine source. More on that to come. Psh, phenomenal. Folks, today, I don't know what's going to be with Torah studies later on, because we had just began our annual campaign, matching campaign for Chabad Lifeline for our crisis drug addiction center. You're all welcome to support it. You might have gotten an email. If you didn't get an email, then send me a message if you'd like to help out. So I don't know what will be later on with the class, depending on how things go. And TRC will be like at 8:30. And Rambam coming up. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you, Chabad Zuch in Kadesh, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege, a pleasure to share with you, Tanya. Have an amazing, great day. Thank you for joining.